Good morning. Welcome to Harrisburg, all of you that love freedom and especially love the freedom that's given to us through that aspect of our Constitution that affirms our God-given right to have the right to bear arms, and Article 1, Section 21 of the Pennsylvania Constitution that does the same. Thank you for traveling from across Pennsylvania today to be with us. Thank you for joining us. We have a great lineup of speakers here for you today. My name is State Representative Darrell Metcalf from the 12th District of Butler County, and I would like to introduce Mr. Stephen Halbrook. I'd like to introduce Mr. Stephen Halbrook, attorney and author, Ph.D., Mr. Stephen Halbrook.
Thank you, Representative Metcalf, honorable members of the Pennsylvania Legislature, and gun owners and others who exercise their Second Amendment rights. It's wonderful to be here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is where it all started. I have a new book called The Founder's Second Amendment, and Pennsylvania is the place that adopted the first right to bear arms guarantee in their Declaration of Rights, and that was in 1776, and it declared that the people have a right to bear arms for defense of themselves and the state. And at that time, you also had a constitutional right to hunt and a provision that the freedmen of this Commonwealth shall be armed for its defense. So Pennsylvania was right at the beginning to initiate a right to bear arms guarantee. It was very influential in having the Second Amendment be adopted at a later time. The Constitution, as you know, was proposed with no Bill of Rights, and that led to great dissent. And here in Pennsylvania, once again, you were the first to initiate a Bill of Rights for the federal Constitution. You had a convention that adopted the U.S. Constitution, but you had what was called the dissent of the minority, and they said that the people have a right to bear arms for defense of themselves, their own states, the United States, for killing game, and that no law shall be passed to disarm the people except for crimes committed. Now, the people who wanted to adopt a Constitution, and they didn't think you needed a Bill of Rights, said that the federal government would never have any power to disarm anybody, and that the Pennsylvania dissent of the minority were basically making this up to scare people into not supporting the proposed Constitution with no Bill of Rights. Isn't that interesting that the supporters of the Constitution said Congress would have no power to enact gun control laws? But in any event, the Bill of Rights was drafted by James Madison, and once again, the first person to exposit it in the popular media was named Tench Cox. He was a Pennsylvanian. That was his pen name. And he said that the purpose of the Second Amendment is so that if the government tries to tyrannize, if a standing army tries to take too much power, the people have a right to keep and bear their private arms. And one more piece of old history, and then I want to move to today. In 1790, you had a beefed-up version of your right to bear arms guarantee. It was authored by James Wilson, and it said that your right to bear arms shall not be questioned, and that, of course, is what's still on your books today. Now, speaking of today, what are we faced with? There's been quite a bit of litigation in the courts. I'm sure you all have heard about the Supreme Court decision in Heller. But before that, we had Hurricane Katrina. We had the Mayor Nagin in New Orleans disarming people in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. We went to court. NRA versus Mayor Ray Nagin got an injunction against that. And the city of New Orleans argued that the Second Amendment didn't apply in the state of Louisiana. And in the meantime, the Heller case worked its way up to the Supreme Court. We only won that it was a 5-4 vote. That shows you how you've got to be careful, you've got to be vigilant and support the right candidates who are going to appoint the right judges, because that was very close. But it held that the Second Amendment protects your and my individual right to keep and bear arms, and that the D.C. handgun ban was invalid. So the day after that decision, we filed lawsuits in Chicago and Oak Park, Illinois. That's where they also have handgun bans, and once again, we're litigating that now. They've come back with the idea that the Second Amendment does not apply in the state of Illinois, doesn't apply in any of the states, it only applies to the federal government. And they say that part of this relates to what's called incorporation, whether the 14th Amendment makes the Second Amendment apply to the states like other Bill of Rights freedoms. And basically, Chicago says that you can take any Bill of Rights guarantee away from someone, and it makes no difference if it's not a state guarantee. You can disarm people, you can ban handguns, do anything you wish. In the meantime, the empire strikes back. D.C. adopted yet more gun control. They said that we won't register any semi-automatic pistols because we're defining them as machine guns. So there you had a very odd definition of machine gun being enacted in the law by the District of Columbia, that machine gun included a gun that only fires once per trigger pull. So we sued them over that. We have a new lawsuit, Heller 2. D.C. also makes you register guns. I think you've got registration proposals here in Pennsylvania, and I hope you go to the utmost to defeat those. Speaking of registration, we have an Attorney General of the United States who supported a 5-year prison sentence if you don't have your guns registered. It's like the Gestapo, your papers are not in order. You go to prison for 5 years for that. So that's what we're faced with at the federal level. You've got a lot of work to do. The gun owners in this country, I think you're very, very powerful in terms of your political power. You've got to keep that up. Being here in a state where you still close on the first day of hunting season of deer season is a real pleasure. I think that that tells you a lot about the makeup of Pennsylvanians today. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of propaganda. Once again, we're hearing that so-called assault weapons should be banned, and you're facing that in this state. We're facing it at the federal level. We have propaganda like the 90% figure that's being touted about. 90% of the guns used by drug traffickers in Mexico somehow are coming from the U.S., and it's a total lie. Those are just the ones that came from the U.S. originally, and they're sent back to be traced here. But probably the majority of guns that are being seized in Mexico from drug traffickers are from guns that originated in that country in their military or police forces through corrupt officers, guns that came in from Venezuela or were smuggled in from North Korea. So don't believe any of that. An assault weapon means a fully automatic. That was the original definition of that term. It does not include normal semi-automatics. This is a term used to demonize them. If you have a right to keep and bear arms, you have a right to keep and bear ordinary common guns. And I don't know what's more common than an AR-15 Sporter rifle. That was the test that the U.S. Supreme Court adopted in the Heller decision, the kinds of guns that are commonly kept by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. Back in 1776, in that epoch, the militia arm was the same arm that a person would have at home and would keep and use for hunting or other purposes. Rifles, pistols, shotguns, those are constitutionally protected. Don't tell me that you can single out one of those kinds of guns and demonize it and say that, well, you've got these other guns you can have, so we can ban those. That's like saying you can ban the newspaper if you still allow television or some other violation of the First Amendment that you could think of. So gun bans are off the table. The courts are going to continue to uphold regulations of some kinds. In this case that came out of the left coast, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit just yesterday, it held that the Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment, applies in the state of California of all places. Fancy that. And the court upheld certain regulations, but on the other hand, it's a powerful precedent for the right to keep and bear arms, that the right does apply to state and local governments. And that's a case that's probably going to work its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. We're probably going to have another case that does that. And so thank you again for coming out today. It's been a real pleasure to be here. And I wish you the best and keep fighting. Thank you.
Now, while he's stepping forward, we have one other special gift from attorney Stephen Halbrook. It's a signed and autographed copy of his book on the Founders' Second Amendment. I want to thank him for bringing it. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Waiting for your response for the meeting or for the small show.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's for you, for the certificate? Okay. Stick around with this young lady. Okay, I'm going to ask Stephen Halbrook to pull this since he offered the book.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, for the last winning prize, 1046538. Do we have a winner? 1046538. All right. Thank you very much. Would you like to present that thing, sir?
Yes, sir. Enjoy.
Thank you for coming. Representative Metcalf, where'd he go? Oh, he's to the floor? Okay. Well, that is the conclusion of today's rally, this portion of it. All of you who are assigned to teams, please go to those locations in the Capitol, right here, this rotunda. I want to thank you all for coming. And remember one thing, inscribed on those walls out there is a statement that those who seek security at the price of freedom and safety deserve neither. Let's tell them about it now. Thank you very much. Semper Fi.